Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY is sponsored by Independent Bank as well as Marianne Quist of Remax Central. And we welcome to the, I would say the virtual guest microphone here this morning because we are practicing social distancing, Kelly Smith, president of Baker College of Cadillac. Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Hi, Rich. I'm great. Wish I was sitting in the studio with you, though.
You know, you and I have talked about how the fact, some of us thrive on human touch. We're huggers by nature.
We are.
And this is misery for us, isn't it?
It's misery. I can't tell you. I've seen those little memes going across Facebook about just be prepared. I'm going to hug you for 5 full minutes. And I'm sorry, but I think that's what I'm going to have to do if this ever gets over.
And it will at some point.
Yes, it will.
So before we get to how Baker College has responded to college education in the era of COVID-19, why don't we start with what's new at Baker College of Cadillac?
Well, gosh, new today. We don't have any new programs right now, but we do have some that we're working on that I hope to be able to talk with you about in the next few months. Obviously, we have been totally consumed with the COVID response, but I am pretty proud of the fact that we are working with Munson Healthcare. We have moved all of our residents out of the downtown apartments and deep cleaned that, and we will be working with Munson to house first responders there who may be working at the hospital and don't want to go home to their families because they have come into contact with somebody who is a COVID patient.
Wow.
And so I'm very proud to be able to do that and work with our fine folks at Munson Hospital. So we've been working on that for the last couple of weeks, along with finishing up our spring programming and getting set to start spring courses. So that's consumed a lot of our time, and it's been challenging at times, but not as challenging as some other folks are having to deal with.
It's very interesting, especially, I work at the CTC, and all of our class is hands-on. It's all hands-on. So how do you balance that hands-on need of education against the inability to get hands-on things right now?
Yeah, for us, we have had to set aside some of our clinicals, especially in the medical area. Accreditation dictates an awful lot of that. I will say that the accrediting bodies for us in the nursing and surge tech area, along with vet tech, have just for this period of time allowed some simulation hours. We have a pretty robust simulation lab for medical. It looks, if you go up there and sometime when we can get back on campus, I'd love for you to come see it. We do have what it looks just like a regular hospital. They have a simulation area where the simulation happens behind in a room where the students can't see them, where some of our mannequins are able to talk and show certain characteristics that you would find in a hospital setting or present with that. We have also worked with Munson in the past, to have a resident available where our nursing students are able to get them on the line, like telemedicine, and share what the patient is presenting with. So that has been allowed during this COVID crisis. Certainly not for all of their hours, but for some. So we have been able to get most of our nursing students through that, in addition to the hands-on-hand clinicals that they were doing prior to the stay-at-home orders. There is some small simulation that's been allowed in vet tech. We're now looking at getting that simulation materials for those students to continue their vet tech internships. Surge Tech has not done as much of that. Obviously, you have to be right there. And we're hoping that when we can get back to work, those students can complete their hours in simulation. But like you said, some of that you just have to have that hands-on ability. But I am pretty impressed with some of the simulations that are coming out online. I think we'll see more of that. We've been lucky at Baker because we have a very robust online college. And so when this all came out, we were able to very quickly move students to an online environment. For our Running Start students, which you know is our high school dual credit programming, and we have those pushed into the high school with either vetting teachers on that campus or sending our own teachers in. We did pause those for almost 30 days until the schools were told or, was shared that they would continue learning environment on an online or packet basis. And I will say we had about 75 of those paused. All of them are back on and continuing. We did allow students and schools to withdraw students at no penalty. And I will say we had some, obviously, because they either didn't have the equipment, computers at home, or the internet capability. However, a majority of students found ways to do that, or their schools did. They dropped off computers to them. Spectrum and other internet companies allowed free internet for a period of time. And I would say a large majority of those Running Start students are continuing with their classes, and we'll finish those up by the end of May. Sorry. All time is left for me. So
it has, you know what, Kelly? It has for all of us. The days all run together.
Oh, my God. I have to ask myself, what day is today? But they should be complete by the end of May. So I'm pretty proud of that. All the instructors, both K-12 and Baker college instructors, have been very nimble with that, have sought out many of the resources that we have available for all of our instructors to teach in an online environment. And we're also continuing to share recorded sessions, online resources with all of those instructors. So even when we come back online, I do think that we'll see some differences in the way curriculum is delivered. I think that all teachers, our K-12 partners, and our Baker instructors have found some really cool opportunities that kids enjoy and are very engaged in the online format. So we'll probably see some more of that sprinkled in as we move slowly back to the environment of the past. And none of us know what that environment may look like.
We have had to adjust in so many ways. And that was going to be a question that I was going to ask you. So once things return to some semblance of normalcy, you actually do see there being at least somewhat of a shift into the online realm. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I believe that. Of course, that's a Kelly Smithism. But I think even in the world of work, I was never a proponent of remote working. I think that's the boomer in me saying, well, I've got to see them sitting in that chair from 8 to 5, which is ridiculous. But it was some mentality that I had because we've had remote workers for some time with the online college. We have instructors, full-time staff that are all over the nation in our online college. So they definitely are working remotely. And I think that with Zoom, WebEx, Google Hangout, we've been able to do so many of the things that we would do normally. And I think that especially with COVID continuing to be an issue until there's some sort of vaccination for it, that we will see both in our school setting and in just our work setting a combination of coming to an office at a building and also doing some of that work remotely from our homes in order to address some of the limited contact we may need to continue for a period of time.
Or it can be just kind of left up to the individual. I mean, if the individual is worried about contracting a virus and worried about being in a confined space with other people close by, it can be a personal decision, right?
Yeah, it can, and I think that then we feel like we can accommodate that. I certainly feel that as a supervisor that I can accommodate that more. I do think I don't feel like I've been a great at-home remote worker, but I've had to battle through it because of my my inability to focus sometimes. I get going on a work thing, then I'm doing a home thing, and it just felt like I didn't have a good balance between the two. But over time, now we're in week 4 or something, I feel like I've become more like that. I've got my office workstation set up. I come in here when I'm going to do work and know that I can attend to that for a period of time, and then, be able to not be so bing, bing, bing all over the place. Okay, I'm going to do work, then I'm going to do a home kind of thing. And I think I'm even getting better at that. But I think especially if you have children at home, that would be difficult. I know my own daughter and her husband are working remotely and trying to be the homeschool facilitator, if you will, because there's some great things happening from our K-12 people when the student is able to have, the equipment and the internet connection for them. I know my grandson definitely looks forward to the Zoom meetings with his class.
Yeah, my 2 youngest have Zoom meetings with their classes as well, and it's fun to watch them all interact. And you're looking at a screen, and Katie and I joke about this often. All of a sudden, all of our computer screens look like the Brady Bunch with or Hollywood Squares with 9 people on the screen. It's kind of interesting, but so. The biggest challenge for you as a college administrator, what would you say the biggest challenge or adjustment has been for you?
I think the biggest thing, and I think with anybody who has the heart of a servant leader, is the people. I'm worried for the students. I'm worried for the staff. How do we take care of them? During this time, there's a lot of stress, not knowing. I will say that Baker College is an incredible organization and has continued to pay people and continue your health benefits, which are exorbitant, and I'm thankful for that. I don't know how long that can go on. We do have some people that it's just not possible for them to work remotely, but we've tried to be very fair and consistent because we care about our people. But we care about our students, too. We have kept housing open because we do have some kids that, really don't have a safe place to go back to as it is related to the COVID. Some of them are going back to some of those hot spots. So we have kept our housing open and tried to attend to the needs that they have. But also it's been challenging for them to understand that, yes, we're going to keep the housing open, but you do have to comply with what the state mandates are. We don't want you to have visitors. We don't want you to think that you can go out and live your life as you did in the past because you come back and maybe you're not put at risk, but you're putting others at risk. And I think that's going to be the hardest thing for us as a population. I get it. I feel like, okay, well, if COVID is in my future, then it's in my future, but I don't want to be stupid and not wear a mask and bring it where it might harm somebody else.
Right.
Currently, I have my mom staying with me who is definitely at risk, and I did that selfishly three or 4 weeks ago because I didn't want to just be here alone, and it's been great company, but I also have to be mindful that the choices that I make may not harm me, but they will harm her and could be life-threatening. And I think that I'm seeing some of that on the news and things where people are resisting face masks, nobody's going to tell me what to do kind of thing, but it isn't just about self. And I think that that's the one thing that we have to always remember is that we're in a time where, yeah, I get it. I'm one of those people. I'm a risk taker, Rich. And so, hey, maybe I could throw caution to the wind for Kelly Smith, but I should not be able to decide on my actions how that might affect somebody else. And so I think we have to be mindful, and I think as a population, I hope that we care for others outside of just self because that seems somewhat self-absorbed if all I go out and say, hey, I'm just in this for me, because as you and I said at the opening of the show, we're all very interconnected.
Yes.
And so the choices that I make today could have devastating effects on some people that I love or people that others love in the future. So I just think we have to be mindful, and I don't like that we're kind of stuck at home either, but hey, we're not picking up a gun and going to war.
Well, this is a snapshot in time too, Kelly. It's a brief period in the history of time that we just have to make the sacrifices and make the right decisions. That's kind of how I feel about it too.
Yeah, so I think as the leader, that's the hardest for me. It's always been, I think, part of my psyche as a leader. I've always cared very much for the people who are under my care, and that's always been staff and students. And so I think that's the biggest challenge. And I think probably even at a government level, that's what they're having to deal with too, is, certainly the decision that you have to make as a leader isn't going to suffice for everyone, but you do have to do what is in the best interest of most, because that's all we can do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest challenge, probably for any leader at this point. When is the right time? What's the right way to go about it? So we as a leadership team at Baker have closely watched, what our state officials are saying, because every state does present differently. I do have a place in Florida, and I will say to you that I was down there just at the beginning of this, and, the beaches were filled. And I did think that they were responding more slowly than Michigan was, and I think that especially with that population down there, that could set them into a hot spot in some areas. And I don't want to see that here. We have not experienced that in northern Michigan, and I just pray that we don't experience what they're experiencing in Detroit.
This is a good time to take a break. I've got a couple more questions teed up for you here, Kelly, and we will do that in just a moment here on Cadillac Unscripted with Kelly Smith, president of Baker College of Cadillac on 107.9 CDY. It's Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. This is our second segment with Kelly Smith, president of Baker College of Cadillac. And Kelly, I know a local college's role in training or retraining, especially in times of unemployment, in times of great stress in the economy. I'm sure you are looking at the future and thinking there's going to be people coming to you and looking to retrain for different careers. I imagine you have already had conversations about that.
Yes, we have. A lot of local conversations going on. You know that anything that gets done has to be done through partnerships, many partnerships. So we've been working all along with the Visitors Bureau, the Community Foundation, the Alliance for Economic Success, the Chamber, and we all agree that we need to find ways to help our small businesses hopefully stay afloat. I've been so pleased with the community's response to just online purchasing for things like takeout at our local restaurants, and the sweet shop. They've been inundated with Mother's Day and Easter and things like that, and I think that's really important. That's why I love this community. But one of the things that we've been talking about is how can we, as a college training facility and economic levers in our community, like the Alliance for Economic Success, the Visitors Bureau, Community Foundation, Chamber, etc., how can we work together to provide short-term opportunities for people to get retrained if necessary or back in operation? And so we've got a lot of things that we're working on as it relates to grant funding that's available, because we have to have money to do the work and to also pay for the training. So we're keeping our ear pretty close to federal and state funding that's coming out and applying for that as needed, without applying on top of other community, community folks like the city that might be going for some grant funding for the same reason. So it's important to have good communication, and I think we've had almost weekly meetings regarding that. So we're hoping to be able to roll out some opportunities in the next month for local small businesses and for people that might need retraining. We don't even know what those things are yet, but we know that they will be things that we have to be prepared to do. And so I do, again, say that we have some incredible people working at those places that I mentioned, along with the folks from Baker College, like Tom Nathie and Mark Lagerway, who have been very involved in opportunities for non-credit training. And we had a meeting late last week regarding some funding that we might be able to go after and then promote those opportunities to our local businesses and to those people who might need some retraining.
And it is interesting because the need for labor locally in the factories and that it's still there. It is still there.
Oh, yeah. Yes, very much so. I mean, it was a problem prior to COVID, and I think that it's going to now create more issues, even for some of our companies who are going to have to decide how can we continue to do, manufacture and provide a safe work environment as far as social distancing, et cetera, when we get back to work. And so I don't think any of us have those answers, but I do think that COVID's going to be with us for the long term. So we just need to adjust how we collectively fight that issue.
So going forward, Kelly, what do you think the greatest role is that Baker College can play in the community?
Well, I think definitely training for whether it's how we come up with how do we provide social distancing opportunities or retraining with some of our, Math Squared is an example of, I do think this is going to show more robotic opportunities for especially manufacturing and kiosk kinds of things. And then you need people who can fix those things, because once they go down, that means your whole work is going down. I also think that it would be with in-kind kinds of things. We have some opportunity to collaborate with some of those partners and provide a space for maybe some incubator kinds of things. And I think that also myself and other staff members, that we will continue to play leadership roles on some of those committees and local nonprofits as a leadership role on their boards, which help us bring those things together. I think the days of operating in a vacuum are no longer. We need to combine our resources in order to be as efficient as possible. So those are the top three things that I think that Baker can allow, and continue to partner wherever we see opportunity. We have always felt that partnership is important. The YMCA is a prime example. We've worked hard with them and gifting them with getting them out of debt. And now COVID has hit. And so how do we help the YMCA continue to function as a very important part of our community? And I had a conversation with Mike Helsel yesterday, and we just need to brainstorm once we know some of the parameters in which we're going to have to work. How do we help them continue to be financially stable in our community?
And that's something where it's you can't live in a vacuum right now. You have to be paying very, very close attention to what's going on, because things do evolve from day to day.
Right, exactly. And, how long can any organization or small business or nonprofit move along without membership dollars or outside sourcing or people being able to come in and purchase or participate kinds of things? I think the Y is an example in some of our small businesses. I've seen Your Sister's Closet. I've seen KCB on online. My mom is here and she loves quilting. She was on for the creative Cardinal Creations last night. They were selling bolts of fabric. So I do think that, again, just like we said with the schools, I do think that we'll see some even when we go back out of this, we'll still see some of our small businesses and some like the Y offering classes online. I still think that we'll see some of that happening because I do think that they've been able to be flexible enough to see that is a way for them to market their services or products to people who may not have been part of them in the past because of transportation or inability to get there.
And that might be a silver lining in all this, don't you think?
It might be. Yeah, Rich, you and I live on that. Even the bad experiences, we figure out what's the positive out of that, and I think that it could be opportunities that would not have shown itself if we wouldn't have gone through this crisis.
Yeah, sometimes you have to look in dark places to find bright things, and we've certainly have been dealt a very dark situation. So for the past 6 weeks, Kelly, what have you personally, not necessarily as the president of Baker College, but what have you personally in the last 6 weeks missed the most?
My grandbabies.
Yeah.
Terribly.
Yeah.
I've missed the social interaction for sure. It's about killed me, Rich.
I think most of us agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, and even friendships, both on the job and outside of the job. I've certainly talked to my friends and acquaintances on TV, on the phone, but it's not the same as having that face-to-face interaction. I think that not being able to even see my children who live downstate in that last 6 weeks, we FaceTime every day. Mm-hmm. I've tried to capture my grandbabies, but it's like capturing the wind. And I think that just being able to give them a hug, I could almost cry talking to you about it. Yeah. So I think that I'm not alone in that. I know I'm not because I've talked to other people in the same situation, but that's been hard. Yeah. And I have a wonderful home, and I live in a great community, and I've missed not being able to go out and see both, really good friends and just acquaintances. I will say with the new mask thing, I've worn that to the grocery store, and it doesn't allow me to smile at people and have them see that, and that's something that I think I'm probably known for and enjoy. I like to say hi to people, but you can't do that so easily with a mask on.
No, you can't. And sometimes it's hard to see a smile through just eyes, unfortunately.
Yes, absolutely.
So before we finish up here, graduation plans for the students who were closest to graduation at Baker. What is that looking like? Well,
I don't know that this has been out to the students, so I may be breaking some CIA code, but no, we're not going to be able to put a crowd together.
Right. I think everybody knows that.
Yeah. So we are probably going to be looking at some sort of virtual celebration. We are so proud of our graduates, all of them, including our 13th year. We had over 70 13th year students across the state that were going to walk across that stage, and that pains me for each and every one of those and our regular grads. And also that some of our grads are going to have to be delayed because they have to finish those clinical hours, and that just has to be. There's no way around that. Right. So I am sorry for that, but I'm sure that we'll probably have to have a virtual option, and I'm pretty sure that if they so chose and we are able to hold a large event in May of 2021, they would be allowed to come to that and walk across the stage. So probably that's how it'll be handled.
You want to have that closure. You want to have that rite of passage and that closure to say, hey, I worked hard for this, I accomplished this, and share that with your family,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be a way that we can have some sort of celebration, and I'm not sure what that is, other than the virtual content and the possibility of having a large venue next year.
Like everything else in the last 6 weeks, you just figure it out as you go, right?
Right. You do, and you have to be flexible, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't pain us or disappoint us or frustrate us, but it does mean that that we just have to be resilient in these times and change the way that we might have to do business.
Well, you are a ray of sunshine in sometimes a very dark place, and we were very glad to have had you on the program today and talk a little bit about what's going on, not just in Baker's existence, but Kelly Smith's existence too. So we appreciate.
I appreciate that, Rich. I always have a great time when we get together.
You bet. I do as well. All right, that's going to wrap it up for Cadillac Unscripted this time. Join us next week at 8:30 when Katie and I will welcome another guest to talk about things going on in and around the Cadillac area. Cadillac Unscripted, sponsored by Independent Bank on 107.9 CDY.